Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm hoping you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
All right
Yes,
then.
I
Yes, we
can.
can, yeah.
Okay, cool. So today we are going to be talking about user stories, creation of user stories and acceptance criteria. Just get this out of the way. Right. Okay. And as part of our discussion, we're going to be covering epics, features, user stories, and acceptance criteria. And then I'll show you how they are all connected. Right, okay, so let's get down to it. What's an epic? We have written here that an epic is a high-level body of work that bands together a group of related stories. What that means, related, it means related user stories, right? So an epic is a high-level body of work that bands together a group of related user stories. They are large pieces of work that can be broken down into smaller and more manageable work items, tasks, or user stories. They are used to describe more complex tasks and create a clear hierarchy that makes it easier to manage development and help deliver value to the users while working towards a bigger goal. So what this means is that um, the epic derives itself from like your business goal. So when it says working towards a bigger goal, it derives from like your business goals. So you get the epics from there, and they are complex tasks. So as the first paragraph says, it says it's a high level body of work. If you think about high level information, you're thinking about executive level, like um um the top managers, like senior managers and all that, people that make strategic decisions, for a business. So yeah, that kind of level of complexity, right? So when you break down the epic further down, you would get some other category of work, which we will look at shortly. So what you just need to know about epic is that it's a high level body of work, and it's kind of like a group of complex tasks that are banded together, all right, and they're high up in the hierarchy. Now, we mentioned that, or rather, I mentioned that when you break the epic down, it gives you a new category of work type. If you break an epic down, you get features, right? So, what's a feature? It's a service or function of the product that delivers business value and fulfills the customer need. But what does this all mean? Epics are broken down into features, right? And a feature is a chunk of work from the epic. So while we said the epic derives itself from the business objective, so it's high level, when we break the epic down, we'll get a number of different features. So a feature is a chunk of work that is derived from the epic. It's a deliverable that adds value and moves towards completing the epic. If I were to take you back one step, can you see the last two lines? It says the epic helps deliver new value to the users while working towards a bigger goal. So just as a reminder, the epic works towards what the business goal, right? And we said the feature works towards delivering or completing the epic. So an epic can be broken down into smaller tasks that can be referred to as features. Okay, moving on. If we break down the features further, would get what we call user stories. They are short, simple descriptions of a feature told from the perspective of the person who desires the new capability, usually a user or a customer of the system. One thing to note is user stories are told from the perspective of the user. So it's like the name implies, it's a user story, a story told by the user. In this case, the BA is the one writing the story, but assuming the position of a user. Remember that as a BA, you are bridging the gap between the business and technical teams. So you're standing like a user. You're going to elicit requirements, going to find out what the business needs are. You're translating them into actionable tasks, and documenting them so that the development team can run with it. They can, do whatever kind of coding they need to do, or development work and testing as well. So bear in mind, always keep this at the back of your mind, that you are representing the user. Because what point of what use is it if a product is developed, or a system is put in place, a process is put in place, and it is of no value to the user? It's not fit for purpose. It would defeat the purpose, isn't it? Because at the end of the day, you're making systems for people to use. If they can't use the system, then it defeats the purpose. So in order to meet that business need, the business analyst must make sure they are acting as if they are the user. So they're always looking at things from the user's perspective. How do we make things work? How do we improve the user experience? Like, how do we make this system easy to navigate for the user? How can we simplify this process for the user? It's all back to the user. I mean, if you must solve a problem, it must be by the way you're able to add value to the business and make a system or process easier for the user. Okay, so user stories are short, simple descriptions of a feature told from the perspective of the person. So told from the perspective of a user. Okay, they talk about how a particular bit of feature will offer something of value. So again, they work towards completing a feature, while a feature works towards completing an epic. So if you're thinking about the hierarchy, it's epics, features, and then user stories. Bear in mind that you might find yourself working in an organization and you don't get to see anything called features. You just see epics and user stories, or you see theme, epic, and then user stories, or theme, epic, features, user stories. Do not panic, right? A lot of these things are not, would I say, set in stone. You'd have to go with whatever has been generally agreed within the organization that you find yourself. But in a lot of cases, you have an epic broken down into features, and the features further broken down into user stories. Okay, so that's like a general rule. The most important thing to note, though, is that the user story is the smallest piece of work. So that's why it says short, simple descriptions. So it doesn't really matter the nomenclature and how organizations decide to call whatever. They might call them epics or themes or features or whatever. But just know that the smallest piece of work, will be the user story. Okay, moving on. So why do we write user stories? Why do we write user stories? I think the first reason is to put the end users at the center of the conversation and capture product functionality from their perspective. Again, that goes back to what I was saying. You have to put the end users, they have to be considered as part of that conversation, because again, they are the ones for which the system or process is being made. So it's crucial that we have a conversation that includes the users of that system or the product. Okay, we want to be able to capture the functionality of that product from their perspective, because again, they are the ones that will end up using it. User stories focus on what the user wants to achieve and why. It's very important to know why. Okay, to know the reason behind it. This helps developers to get a better understanding of what they're building, for whom they're building it, and why they are building. Okay. So specific benefits of user stories. So there are more benefits, but we're just going to consider a number of them. The first one here is that they focus on the user and their needs, and that's what I've been talking about. If you've noticed, they focus on the user and their needs. They allow for equal amounts of understanding and collaboration. Why is this the case? Because if you remember, I said that as a business analyst, you stand to bridge the gap between the business and the IT team or the development team. So you go elicit requirements and then you document them in a way that will ensure understanding, like you make sure it is clearly documented. How do we document business needs? By user stories, by writing user stories. So whether we start from epics, break them down to features, and then user stories, whatever it means, at the very end of the day, we would have user stories, because that's what we'll take to the development team and that's what they will run with. Okay, so when you have a user story in writing, documented and saved somewhere, there's a common understanding, right? Because there's a reference point and everybody knows what's expected. And then we talk about definition of done, like all the things that must happen for us to know that this task is completed. So it allows for it allows everyone to have that shared understanding, of what is expected at the end of the project. It also allows for collaboration. We'll go into that in a bit more detail as we go on. User stories help drive creative solutions. You might wonder, why is this the case? A user story in itself is not a solution. A lot of times in businesses, you hear them say, you're not going to try to solutionize, meaning that as a business analyst, you're not going to be offering solutions like or saying what you would like to happen. No, you're facilitating discussions. You are, encouraging collaboration and, facilitating an environment where people can be creative and come up with solutions. A lot of times, it's the users that might. So, I mean, simply by speaking to users, you might even get the solution from them, because again, they are the ones that use. For example, if your project was a process improvement project, you can imagine that you would have to, maybe like shadow the users or have a really good understanding of the process. Maybe create a process map so that you can walk your way through or understand the process flow, the workflow. By so doing, you are able to break the process down into different bits and see the sequence of tasks that happens for that process to be completed. Now, when you're doing this, the end users might be able to express their pain points or their needs or the things that they would want to be improved, right? By so doing, they are actually generating requirements for you. Now, as a business analyst, you're not going to say, oh, this is what I know we should do, and this is how it's going to happen. No, there will be discussions, with the development teams, with the end users, with other teams that will be impacted by the success or failure of that project. So we refer to these people as stakeholders. So, for example, if you're creating maybe like an e-commerce platform or something like that that holds customer data, you'll be dealing with end users, maybe the customer service rep that will be using that platform. You also be working with developers, so testers and developers. You would also probably have to collaborate with colleagues from like the data team or legal team. Like there might be regulatory things you might want to consider. So the point I'm trying to make here is that the user stories are not a solution in themselves. Instead, they help, create or they help, like facilitate that environment where people can creatively profess solutions. Okay. Now, what is a good user story? Before we continue, let me ask, do we have any questions so far?
Not yet.
No,
Not
no
yet.
question yet.
That's fine. Okay. So I'm making sense. All right. Okay. Moving on. What is a good user story? Now, if we're going with best practice, you find that for a user story to be classified as good, it has to be independent, negotiable, valuable, estimable, small, and testable. If you notice, I've highlighted the first letter on all those words. And if you read it together, the first letters, it spells out invest. It spells out the word invest. independent, negotiable, valuable, estimable, small, and testable. If you follow these principles, or if you follow the principle of invest, you would always have a good user story. Okay. Now, what does independent mean? It means that the user story should be as independent as possible from other user stories so that they can be turned around or moved around with minimal impact. What this means is you want to make sure that it's not tied to another so you're not waiting for something else to happen before this one happens. If that's the case, you might want to bunch everything together into one user story. Now, if you notice, I've explained this, that it should be as independent as possible, because in some cases it might not be possible to write a user story that's completely independent of everything else, because as you can imagine, you might have to wait for something to be completed before moving to another task, right? But you want to try as much as possible that all right. So just to as a quick recap, really, we're talking about the creation of user stories and acceptance criteria, and we've covered epics, features. We're currently on user stories, and we said the epic is the highest level of work, and it derives itself from a bigger goal, like your business goals. When the epic is broken down, you get a number of features. So the features, um, let me minimize this now. I think it's in the way. The features work towards completing the epic. And if a feature is broken further down, you get a number of user stories. User stories are short descriptions of a feature told from the perspective of the user. And we've been making that emphasis. It has to be told from the perspective of the user, because at the end of the day, the end users are the ones going to use the product or walk through the process. Okay. And then we talked about the reason why we write user stories, because it helps put the users at the center of the conversation, just so that we have user-centric solutions, and whatever product or solution we come up with is user-friendly and fit for purpose. Okay. Benefits of user stories: they focus on the user and their needs. They allow for equal amounts of understanding and collaboration. They drive creative solutions. So we said user stories are not solutions in themselves, but they provide a platform or an opportunity where people can then come up with creative ideas. Okay. What is a good user story? I think this was where I got cut off. Apologies again. So we're talking about writing a user story using the principle of invest. INVEST. Independent, negotiable, valuable, estimable, small, and testable. So we said the user story should be as independent or as standalone as possible from other user stories, so that they can be moved around, you know, and they can be moved around without so much of an impact, or with minimal impact. So we said this might not always be the case. If you see that it's too dependent on another thing, you might as well just join it together with the other one, you know. Yeah, so negotiable. The user story is not be all end all. It's not set in stone. It's not a contract per se, right? It's simply a placeholder for features, right? And it's meant to be discussed and clarified closer to the time when development will take place. So a placeholder is negotiable, so you can go. I'll give you an example. So I could go and write up a user story based on my interaction with the stakeholders, right? Um, a lot of times I go in with a senior developer. We go and have those elicitation meetings. You put down your thoughts and all the information you have gathered, and you draft your user stories. Now you take these user stories. So I will take the user stories to refinement meeting, right? During the refinement meeting, we will start reviewing one by one each user story. As we review it, there's time for discussion. As we review it, now, mind you, the business analyst might not be so technical in their experience, right? But that's all right. We're just going and standing in the place of a user and trying to understand what the business need is with a view to solving that problem. Are you going to be the one to solve it? No, but you are going to facilitate meetings and discussions and all the other activities that will help solve that problem. Okay, now when I take that user story to that meeting, I'm not going to say, oh, this is what they want and that's the end of it. No, now I'm coming and saying the business wants to do this. The developers that will create and do all the coding and all the groundwork, they will discuss along with testers, along with maybe UX designers, and then maybe the UI team, user interface team. They will discuss, what does this task entail? What do we need to create for this to be completed, right? So that discussion starts. A lot of times, I'm not doing a lot of talking in those meetings. So I've set the scene, I've read the story, I've explained the rationale, and this is what they want, this is their pain points, they would like to see this, blah, blah, blah. And from that point on, they go into like technical details, they break it down. They're like, oh, I've seen this work better in another project. Can we adopt this? Okay, in order to do this, we need to follow this many steps, So again, negotiable. It is not a contract, it's a placeholder for features, it's a placeholder for future discussions. And these discussions will happen closer to the time when development work is about to start. Okay. Next one is valuable. Clearly, you have to show how this user story would bring value to the business. So user stories are features, they're not really tasks, and they're supposed to represent clear business value. When I show you an example of a user story, you understand what I mean by value. You have to be able to see the value that that user story is going to bring to the business. Next one is estimable. This means that the user story is clear enough for estimation. Quick question. Have you guys done any estimation, or this is just the start of your project work? Apologies if I'm asking a question that you already know. Have you started doing any? No. You surely you wouldn't have, because you've not written user stories, have you? Okay, I'll just go back to the start. Have you written a user story?
Yes, we have. Yeah.
Oh, you have. Right, you have. Okay, so have you done like estimation?
Yes, we have.
You guys are ahead of the game now.
Mhm.
So why are you in this class? You already know what we're talking about.
Estimation. I'm not. I don't know if we've, I don't know. I'm not sure I've done that estimation. No.
Okay. So the estimation, it really isn't the BAs that will do the estimation, right? It's the testers and developers, so the QAs and developers that would do the estimation. You would be in that meeting, right? You would facilitate it, or either yourself or the Scrum Masters will facilitate estimation, right? So this is where the people that will do the actual work estimate the effort required to deliver on that task. Okay, so they have ways that they estimate. So there's this Fibonacci sequence that can be used. So there are different techniques and methods that can be used for that, but that's not story for today. The reason I've mentioned this is because we said estimable. So your user story must be clear enough for estimation, right? Okay. And the next one is small. It should be small enough to fit into a time box or a sprint. And your sprints are usually like 2 weeks or 4 weeks. In some cases, some places you might see a month, or so 4 weeks or even 6 weeks. But what you usually find is time boxes or sprints of 2 weeks. Okay. And the final one here says testable. This means that the user story should be worded clearly and specifically enough to be testable, because again, how would we know that the work has been done if we cannot test it? So it has to be written, in a way that is specific enough. It's not too generic. It's specific enough to be tested. Okay, moving on. All right, so I've already explained this. Yeah, independent means self-contained. It's possible to bring it into progress without depending on another user story or external resource. Negotiable, you should leave room for discussion regarding its optimal implementation, right? Valuable, it has to show the value that it delivers to stakeholders. It really has to be clear. Estimable, it should have a size relative to a benchmark user story. Well, what that means is what I've explained, that it should be clear enough for estimation. If it's too ambiguous, it won't be possible to estimate it, because, like, again, people are trying to estimate or guess, or rationalize how much effort they would put into, developing that piece of work or testing it. So it has to be really clear, okay, and not ambiguous. Small enough to estimate with reasonable accuracy and to plan into a time box, such as a sprint. I just said that. And then testable, it should have a clear acceptance criteria which allows satisfaction to be tested. Right. Now, format of a user story. I believe I'm preaching to the choir here, because you've confirmed that you've written user stories, isn't it? But we'll go through this anyway. So what we're going to do, after I give the format, I'm going to ask you guys to give me examples of user stories, because again, you've written some user stories, which is good. So this is the format of a user story, as you know. As a, I want, so that. Right. So the first sentence describes the type of user. The second defines the goal. And the last sentence, it shows the outcome. What is the end result? So as a, it shows the type of user. I want, so what do you want? And then so that, right? So that's the line that shows value. Remember, in the last slide we said invest, valuable, right? You must be able to demonstrate the value that it delivers to stakeholders. So it has to be clear, right? So if you put that in this format, it will be clear what value is being added to the stakeholder by completing a number of actions, or by the completion of that user story. Okay. Now, right, so I've talked about the functions here. Now, as I want, so that. So as it talks about who. I want is what do you want? What? So that, why do you want it? So first one is who wants it. Second one is what do they want? And the last one is why do they want it? Right, so I'm now going to open the floor. Let me see if I can see everybody. Let me try and maximize my thingy, so that I can see the number of people here, and we can have a go at the user stories. Okay, now I've got how many people here now? Who wants to have a go at a user story? So I've told us the format as I want, so that. Anybody wants to go first?
Yeah, I don't mind.
Okay, Mr. Oni. Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead, please.
Based on the project we've been working on, the Mentors Kit website.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
Um,
Mentor's Kit. Okay, cool.
yeah. So as a Mentors Kit website user, I want to view the landing page
Okay,
so that I can learn more about the website.
fantastic. Thank you for that. All right, who wants to go next? That's as simple as that, really. And it could be anything. You can even talk about like cooking a pot of rice or something, like anything, you know. Because if you really think about it, everything in life, you can see how important a BA can be, like you can see the use of a BA, because for everything that requires a process or a set of steps, or a product, you can see where a BA can come in. So, can anybody go? Does anybody want to go? I was hoping to see a number of hands up because my understanding is you guys have already started writing user stories. Or do I start calling names one by one? I think I should do that because it's a small group today. Okay, I am going to do that. First on my list is Ozzy. Do you want to have a go?
Oh,
Any
sorry.
kind of
I was
any
just back.
scenario.
I was back and forth. Okay.
Any
As
scenario.
a user of I'll use the project we're doing. As a user of MentorSkid website, I want to view the home page so that I can see the features.
Okay, so have both of you read from
Oh,
from
sorry. You know what? I went to check my son was sleeping. So I went to
That's fine.
check him. So I
That's
never knew
fine. Don't
somebody
mind
spoke
me.
before me.
That's fine. Don't mind me. Yeah, it's fine. You're working on the same project. It's fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but that's an example of user story. Yeah. Thank
All
you,
right.
Ozzy. Okay, Chuku, do you want to go next? Okay, Chuku, are you here with us? Hope you're not snoozing.
Sorry, I was speaking. I didn't know my
Hey,
speaker was off.
I hope you're not snoozing
No, I'm
for
very well.
me. I hope my voice is not boring. Ha.
No.
My boring you to death.
No,
Okay, you want to go for it. And after you give us an example, Ijoma, you go next. Your hand is up. All right, let's have it.
Yeah, so as a user on MentorSkid website, I want to view the banner of the website so that I can read the information on the banner.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank
So do I take it that all of you are MentorSkid?
Yes, we are working on the same project.
All right, I see.
Just
Okay,
different
so
teams. Yeah.
oh, okay. Somebody had their hand up before and put Ijoma. Why did you put your hand down now? Oh, yeah.
As a user of an electric toothbrush, I want to be able to press the electric button to brush my teeth properly.
Okay, now say that again and use the format because you were almost there, right? I want you to use the format as a
As a user of an electric toothbrush, I want to be able to press the electric button so that I can brush my teeth properly.
All right. Okay. Thank you for that. So you can shorten that second sentence. You said, I want to be able to, press the button. You can simply say, I want to press the button. Do you get? So you can shorten it. Yeah.
Yeah.
To make it simpler. But well done. Adedeji, you're next. Your hand is up.
Okay. As a doctor, I want to research cancer. Let me say, sorry. As a doctor, I want to research on cancer so that I can treat cancer patients.
All right, fantastic. I'm glad that you're using something different, just like Ijoma as well. So the reason I'm asking us to do this is so that it's just to get you thinking about how this thing we're discussing affects every aspect of life. So we've talked about MentorSkid, right? We had about 3 people from MentorSkid, and they've talked about their project. They've given them user story examples based on their project, right? We now had Ijoma give an example of a toothbrush, something as simple as an electric toothbrush. And now Adedeji has given his example as a doctor. So you can see how far-reaching, the examples can be and how business analysts can be useful in a number of different scenarios. Well, thank you for that. So any other person? Catherine, you haven't said anything. Samuel, Emilia, it's a small group today, so that so I'm asking folks. Catherine, do you want to go? Okay, Samuel, all right.
Okay. Good evening once again.
Good evening.
As a user of a system, I want to be able to on the button so that I can view the information in the system.
Okay, so when you are giving so you say as a user of a system, so that's not very specific, is it?
Computer or laptop.
Okay, as a user of
laptop,
so you know what? You don't necessarily have to say as a user of. So you can say as a laptop user, or as a. You can even define the kind of laptop. So what's the brand of your thing? As is it? So when I say it's Surface Pro, there's something called Surface Pro, isn't it? I'm not making that up. So I could say as a Surface Pro user, I want to turn on, or I want to press the power button so that I can turn on the system, right? Okay. Does that still capture the information you wanted? You see how user stories can change?
Yeah.
Does that still carry the information that you said? Okay, that's fine.
Yes, please.
All right, cool. Catherine, do you want to go for it?
As a user of McDonald's, I want to be
Okay,
able.
do you want to organize your thoughts and start again?
Yes,
So,
please. Yes.
okay.
As a user of YouTube,
Okay.
I want to be able to view and select the videos so that I can play my favorite music.
Beautiful. So, but I would word that now. I'm saying I would. There's no hard and fast rule, right? Remember that I said in a lot of cases, you have to go with what is acceptable or what's the practice, standard practice in your organization, right? Okay, so you said as a user of YouTube, I feel that reads better if you say as a YouTube user or as a YouTube I don't know, customer or YouTube subscriber or YouTube, So instead of saying as a user of YouTube, I'll say as a YouTube, just whatever. No, I can't say YouTuber because the YouTubers are the ones that create the videos, isn't it? And all the material. Okay, so I could say as a YouTube user, right? I want to. So that's fine. That's fine. Thank you, everyone. Anybody else wants to go one more before we go back to our discussion? Anybody else? Nope. Okay, cool. Right. So back here, you can still see my screen, right? As I want so that. So it defines who, what, and why. So here are some examples. Very simple examples. As an online shopper, I want to view a list of products so that I can select some items to purchase. Okay, so it defines the kind of user. Who's the user? An online shop, not just a shopper, not even just not a shopper on the not a high street shopper, right? And not a window shopper. This is an online shopper. So you see how specific it is. I want to view a list of products so that I can select some items to purchase. Right? Now, remember we said epics can be broken down into features, and features can be broken down into backlog items or user story again. But product backlog items refer to user stories, okay? And when you start, you already have access to your Azure board and everything, so you already know this, that the user stories are referred to as your product backlog items, and your board is can be referred to as your product backlog. Okay. Right. So this is an example of how an epic can be broken down into features, and features can be broken down into a number of user stories. Okay. So we're starting with BlueSky Citadel. The epic here is develop a website for BlueSky Citadel. So just imagine that in the organization, Mr. Deji has said, you know what, we don't have a website. We need a website so that we can be more accessible, to people. We can be more visible. So we want that internet presence, and internet visibility, right? So that's a business goal. A lot of our competitors are online, they've got websites, so we need this so that we can, in the medium to long term, be in the medium to long term have competitive advantage or some other reason, right? What I'm trying to say is this epic would have derived itself from a higher business goal, okay? And now you've had a meeting with him and the other stakeholders, and now you've drafted this epic, develop a website for BlueSky Citadel. Now, this epic can be broken down into a number of features by asking the question, how will we develop a website? What does it entail to develop a website? What are the components of a website? So you can break it down into a number of features. Landing page. So you're not thinking, okay, we're going to consider a landing page. I know that a number of you from MentorSkid mentioned landing page, right? So landing page might be one consideration. So many considerations. And another thing you might want to think of is, authentication. So this website, will people be able to sign in? We'll have members that can sign up, and after that they can come back and sign in or log back in. Will they have passwords? Will they need features to remember the passwords or to retrieve their password, or if they've lost their or forgotten the password, would there be a mechanism in place for them to retrieve their password, if they've forgotten and all that? So there's so many different features that can come under this epic. And under the individual feature of landing page, there's so many user stories that can come under. For example, you now start asking, on the landing page, what are the things that we require? You now be like, in a typical homepage of an organization, you have things like the header, you have things like the footer, so these are considered. So it can be more than this. I'm just giving us a snapshot, and just a quick, run through of the possibilities. And under another feature here is authentication. This can be further broken down into different authentication steps. Signing up. So as a first-time user of that website, and you're like, oh, I'm interested in this, I fancy doing this or that, and I want to be a part of it, so I get to sign up. After signing up, you leave. Another day when you come back, you have to you log in. All right, and when you're logging in, you have to use your password. So this is an example of how epics can be broken down into features, and features can be broken down into user stories. Right, so I'm going to show you another example. Now, bear in mind, what might be an epic in one project might be a feature in another project. What might be a feature in one project might be an epic in another. Okay, why? Because it all depends on the scale of the project. You cannot compare like a large project that's really complex to a simple project of, let's create a website. That's the simplest, in fact, one of the simplest things you can actually do. You can't compare that to when you are working on a project where, for example, you're migrating data from paper copy to a digital platform. You're considering security and legal aspects and all that. You can't compare the two. All right, so what might be an epic in that website project might be a user story on the large complex project. Okay, to buttress that point, I'll show you another example. So here we've said the epic is develop a website for BlueSky Citadel, and then we have two features: landing page, authentication, and then we have a number of user stories. On the next page, okay, let me go back. You see that landing page here is a feature, right? Now, on this other project, let's take it that this is a different project. On this other project, landing page is what? It's an epic. Because that's what it is. I mean, so again, these things are not set in stone. They're all dependent on the agreements that the common understanding, the shared understanding that everyone in the team has. So here we see landing page, which was a feature on the other project. On this project, it is what? It's an epic, right? Create a landing epic for the BlueSky website. And under that, you have a number of features. Again, header and footer, they were what were they there? Let's see. Header and footer, they were user stories here, but here they are features, you see. And then you see how the header menu was now broken down further to now itemize the different parts, components of the header menu. Your logo, your home, we like call the icon, yeah, your sign up button, login button, your search bar, and about us. The footer menu as well was now broken down into different aspects of it. Contact us, privacy policy, frequently asked questions, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, logos, and all that. Yeah. Now, we have gone ahead to now draft a user story for the sign up functionality. Now, we are not new to this, right? Because all of you have given me examples of user stories. So for sign up, for example, as a new user, I want to sign up by creating a username and password so that the system can remember me and my data. Another aspect to this can be, as a newly registered user, I want to receive an email confirmation. Pardon me. I've had a long day. As a newly registered user, I want to receive an email confirmation when I register so that I will know that the registration process is complete. So all this is all tied up to your sign up, okay? You can just visualize when you, maybe the first time you sign up to a website or a new platform. Once you put in you create your username and your password, your data is saved. In a lot of cases, you receive an email confirmation to say, welcome to so, right? So that's what this second story is about. More examples on user stories. An example for login. As a registered user, I want to log in with my username and password so that the system can authenticate me and I can trust it. Another one, as a registered user, I want to occasionally change my password so that I can keep it secure. As a registered user, I want to be able to request a new password so that I don't permanently lose access to my data if I forget my password. So all these are examples under the login user story. All right. So we've talked about user stories. We've given the reasons why we draft user stories. We write them, and the benefits. We've talked about the principles, the invest principle, and we've given examples of user stories. Now, do you remember that we said at some point that they have to be backed up with acceptance criteria? Yeah. On this last bullet point, it says they should have a clear acceptance criteria which allows satisfaction to be tested. So user story is not complete on its own. It's not complete. A user story without acceptance criteria is just like a wish. Okay, you need the acceptance criteria. So what's an acceptance criteria? Acceptance criteria, these are the conditions that a software or product must meet to be accepted by a user, customer, or other systems. The conditions that a software or product must meet to be accepted. Acceptance criteria. You must forgive me. I don't know why I'm yawning so much. It also forms the basis for the acceptance testing stage. Okay. The predefined acceptance criteria can be expressed as the predefined requirements that must be met, taking all possible scenarios into account to consider a user story to be finished. Again, I said, if you don't write the acceptance criteria, the user story is kind of pointless. It's just like a wish. All right. You need steps that must be, or conditions that must be met. When those conditions have been met, you now know that the criteria has been met and that user story has been completed. Okay. User acceptance criteria represent the conditions of satisfaction. When I let me try and think of the examples you guys gave. or let me just come up with my own example. So as a user, I want to open the door, the front door of my house, so that I can gain entrance into the house. Okay. Now, conditions of satisfaction. If I were to put in so this is where acceptance criteria comes in, right? Because there's so many ways I could get into the house, right? But now it gets really specific. We're going to the granular level, of detailing. Now, conditions of satisfaction. If I were to put my key into the keyhole, turn it and it does not turn, or attempt to turn it and it does not turn, have the conditions been satisfied or met? No. All right. So this is why acceptance criteria is quite important, because it tells us what must happen for the user to be satisfied, or what must happen for that project or task to be completed. Now, there is a format for the acceptance criteria as well. I showed you the format for the user story, and I'm assuming you guys also know this because you've been working on your project, right? This is the format for the acceptance criteria. Given, when, then. The format is referred to as the Gherkin syntax. Given, when, then. The given statement is a precondition, so it explains the scenario. The next line says when. That means something happens. Okay, when I do this, when this happens, something happens. So it's an action statement. Then, that is the result. Okay, so for example, my key opening or my door opening example, let me do that again. I said, as a homeowner, I want to open my I want to open the front door to my. So let me start again. As a homeowner, I want to open the front door to my home so that I can gain entrance into my home, right? Now, given, when, then. Let me throw this to you guys now so that people that are sleeping wake up. So I'm going to give you the scenario again, and then you come up with acceptance criteria statements, given, when, then. So the user story is, as a homeowner, I want to open the front door to my home so that I can gain entrance into my home. What do we think could be a possible example or a possible acceptance criteria? Who wants to go first? Where's this thing? So I'll say that again. So as a homeowner, I want to open the front door of my home so that I can gain access to my home. Who's gonna go first? Does anybody want to try? As the question is, so I've read out the user story to you. What do we think we can put under given, when, or then? Does anybody know? Okay. Does anybody not know?
I mean, when you put a key in the keyhole and it turns right, the door opens. You gain access to the house.
Yeah. So I'm not. We don't even. You see how you said it now? Like it's not in a given, when, then format. But you've already stated a precondition, haven't you? And you've already stated an expected end. Let's use that word. Okay, Chiku, I think you unmuted yourself at first. Do you wanna say something?
No, I'm all right. Just listen to what I was saying.
You concur?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So that's a reasonable expectation that when you put the key into the keyhole and attempt to turn, that it turns to the right, and you are able to gain access into the house. Okay. So that's an example of acceptance criteria. But if you want to put that into the Gherkin syntax format. Can somebody try? Now, Mr. Oni has given us an example and said when you put the key into the keyhole and attempt to turn it, it turns right, and you're able to access your home. Can somebody now put that into Gherkin syntax format? That given, when, then. Who wants to go, please?
I'll have
Let
a
me
try.
try.
Okay, go,
Okay,
ladies.
so sorry, who said they want to try other than Okechukwu?
Okay, let me try.
Okay, Gemma, go for it.
Given I'm a homeowner, when I put a key on my front door and turn, I should be able to gain access into my home. Or
do you want to rephrase that last statement?
Okay.
But how can we test? How can we test whether? What if the thing turns and you refuse to enter your house? Would that be our fault that we did not create a good door? It would not be our fault now.
Okay, given
because how can we test? So it's a good example that you've given just now, because it's just reminded me how there are some things you cannot test, so we can't test your will, whether when you turn it you now refuse to enter, then you now say, you have given me a defective product too. All right, so do you want to rephrase that last?
Yes.
Okay.
Given a homeowner, when I insert a key on my door handle, the door opens and I get access.
So would that just be when you insert the key? So are you seeing how this is a really good example? Do you now see when I was saying that the user story and all this acceptance criteria and stuff, it's not a be all end all, right? It's not a contract, because it's an opportunity to discuss, because now we're not going into that level that, so Ijeoma, if you put your key into, so you're a homeowner, check. Okay, you put your key into the keyhole, check. So if you put the key into the keyhole, do you expect the door to open if you put the key into the keyhole?
And I turn to the left.
Left. Are you
or right?
Left or right? Okay. All right. You can start with left and tell me what you expect to happen. Then you tell me.
And I turn to the left and hold down the handle. Then the door must open.
So are you turning to the left?
This can have another scenario.
Okay, go for it.
Yeah, this can have another scenario. Given I'm a homeowner and I insert the key in the handle and turn left, and the door does not open.
Well done. So you've done what they call happy and a sad part, like, so alternate path, right? So you've said okay, so but what you've said now, right, is not really acceptance criteria.
Yeah.
When you're testing your acceptance criteria, if what you expect to happen does not happen, then what would the tester do? They will feel that thing.
Fail.
And then they will say they've raised a bug or something. I don't know if you guys have gotten to that point. I think so. If you've already started. 𝐂𝐎𝐶, let me ask you, are you left-handed?
No.
The reason I asked, because you be saying left. If you turn your key left, you will not open the door, because you want to now blame the development team when they will now, present you with your door. Then you turn it left and you're locking it and you're expecting it to open.
Okay, right is open.
Okay, but yeah, you get my gist. Like, the whole point of it is, so it's something that we're kind of making a joke about, but on a more serious note, you see how it opens up discussions and how you say, no, you want it to turn left. No, it can't be left, because all the doors that they produce these days, they all turn right for them to open. Do you get? And this is the level of details that the developers will not tell you that, BAO, you said this and that, but in real life, what those people are asking for, if to achieve it, it might take maybe 2 years, and they want this project to be done in 6 months. You understand? So this is a workaround. Do you get what I mean? Like, so this is why we say that the user stories is an invitation to discuss. right? And that's why it says negotiable. So you can negotiate and trade off and say, okay, I will not do this one, I will do that one. And this is the best way it will work. Okay. All right. Thank you, Joma, for that example. All right. So let's go back to our thingy. Okay. Now, so we've talked about the acceptance criteria written in that format, given, when, then, right? Given, when, then. So given, when, then. Do you also know that acceptance criteria can just be written as a set of statements? So just a list of pass or fail or yes or no statements that will mark the functionality as complete. I'll tell you this example, and then we'll go back to that example and see how we can make some statements. Now, for example, you can say, is the color displayed correctly as green? Is the user able to sign in with the correct details? Does the landing page display the correct logo? These are yes or no statements, isn't it? Because you can say, if the color is not displaying green, what will you say? No. What does that mean? It has failed. If the user is able to sign in with the correct details and you say yes, what does that mean? It has passed that step. Okay. Now let's go back to our abstract example of the door, and let us now try to create. Let me get this back up. Let us now try to create a set of statements. So we said, as a homeowner, please follow me. Everybody follow me. Wake up, wake up. As a homeowner, I want to open my door. How did I even put it again? As a homeowner, I want to open the front door to my home so that I can enter or gain entrance or gain access into my home. So that's the user story, right? And we said you could write the acceptance criteria in one way or the other. The first way we've discussed is, given I'm a homeowner, when I insert my key into the keyhole and I turn the key to the right, then the door opens up and I'm able to enter into my home. Okay. Now, I've added a lot of and. Please do not panic. It can happen, because sometimes it's not just one step before you achieve your outcome. It might be up to 5 steps. So you have to incorporate it, and this and that, and this and that, All right. So in terms of a set of statements, who can volunteer or who would like to volunteer to give us even one statement? One acceptance criteria statement, like a yes or no statement or a pass or fail statement, using the scenario we just discussed. Somebody trying to open the door. I gave you some examples before. So can you look for examples that pertain to trying to open your door?
Easy.
Can I have a try, please?
Yeah, okay, Chukwu, go for it.
Okay. So I'd say, did the door open when I turned to my right? When I turned the key to the right?
Okay. Okay, that's a good one. Ijoma, did you have another one other than that?
No, it's fine.
Okay. Do you know we can even go to a level of detail that's even deep, tinier. For example, did the key turn to the right? You understand? Another one, when the key turned to the right, did the door open? You understand? So all these are things that you can. So we've just given. This is a very simple example. So yeah, we can get 2 statements from there, but it was just to show you how this could work in practice. Okay. So where were we? Set of statements. Moving on. Now, remember I said that user story is not complete without the acceptance criteria. Now I've bunched the user. So in fact, I've done the complete thing. All right. So this is the example in front of you. As a new user, I want to register by creating a new username and password so that the system can remember me and my data. Acceptance criteria. Given that I am a new user, and I navigate to the sign up page. When I enter my username and password, then I'm successfully registered and able to log in with my chosen credentials. Is that straightforward enough? Is that easy enough for us to understand? Let me check your understanding again. Guys, do we understand? Have we been following so far?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Any other person following? Following. I've only heard back from 2 people. Have you guys been following? All right, I'll take that as yes. Or people have already gone back to their hometown, as in they're sleeping. Okay. Next one. So this is another example. As an online shopper, I want to view a list of products so that I can select some items to purchase. Now, this one is the example with a set of statements. You can see that there's no giving when then. All right. As an online shopper, I want to view a list of products so that I can select some items to purchase. Examples of the another example of a way you can write the acceptance criteria. On clicking product list, the product list opens up in a new tab. Different product categories are listed. On selecting a category, specific related products are displayed. On selecting a product, there is the option to add to basket. On clicking add to basket, the selected product is moved to the basket. So you see, this is a more, it's not as straightforward as the door one, right? So it has more examples, and I think it's a good one. All right, so yeah, actually we have, would you believe it, come to the end of our session today. I would have gone to the your Azure board. I don't have access to it, by the way, but you have confirmed to me that you have access to your Azure board. You're already writing user stories, isn't it? So take this as, would I say, a refresher or a reminder of best practice, right? And how not to and how to write your user stories. So I'm going to, right, Ijoma, your hand is up, and Okechukwu, your hand is up. Is that for questions or was that a contribution? Ijoma, you go first and then Okechukwu.
Yes, it's a question, please.
All right.
So the Gentech, hope I pronounced it rightly.
No, you did not. No, you did not.
Please correct me.
No, you did not. Don't spoil our thing for us. Okay, it's gherkin. Okay, so it's called it's spelled GHERKIN. So KIN, kin, right? Gherkin. Okay.
The gherkin.
Yep.
Process in writing acceptance criteria. From this example you've just given, it means that it's not all acceptance criteria should follow the gherkin process.
Well, it depends. Again, it depends on your organization, on your project, on your team that you're working on, right? So you might be in a project. You might be in a project where they are already using gherkin. So when you go, you just follow, you follow the status quo. You get? But if your project is using a set of statements, then that's fine. All right. But in a lot of cases, I think in the projects I've worked on, right, they've been gherkin syntax. Yeah, they've been gherkin syntax.
Okay, thank you.
It all depends. And then sometimes you might realize that gherkin is not suited to. So it's not like, oh, take this step, then this one, then this one, then this one. It might just be a series of questions that we need to ask. Like, can you see this thing? Is it showing clearly? Is it doing what it says it should do? So there's no hard and fast rule, to be honest. Like, when you go and see what they're using, you see, is that fit for purpose? If it is, then you just fall in line. Okay. Okay, Chuku, you had your hand up.
Yeah, basically that's what I wanted to ask. If it was like real life scenarios and best practices. Prior to that, I was thinking it was just gherkin syntax. So I've learned quite a few new ones, and I just wanted to know.
Okay, I'm glad you said you learned something new.
Thank you very much.
I'm glad you learned something new because it depends on where you're working and the kind of project. I've worked in a strange project where it wasn't purely like a development team. So one of the projects I worked on was a development team. You go, you do your elicitation, you come back, you're meeting with the the testers and developers. You're writing your user stories, acceptance criteria, you're refining them, you're having 2 weekly sprints. And then I worked on another project where all of us on the project were business analysts. There was no developer, right? There wasn't any product. As in, we're not developing any product because we're working with the NHS. And what we were doing, our end result, our product was actually epics. Would you believe it? We were not developing anything. We were creating epics. Because, so you see, there are so many in real life. There are just so many different scenarios that you could find yourself in, but just know the basics, right? And then you adapt to suit. In a lot of cases, just look at what people are doing and just fall in line, except what they're doing is wrong or faulty, and then or you have a better way of doing it. So this project I was on was for the NHS, and our task was to draft epics. So the whole point of this epics was because in the NHS, now you know how like you go to your GPs and all that. There are a few suppliers that kind of monopolize their supplies to the NHS. All right. So for certain products, maybe you may have just one supplier. So what we were doing was that we were now creating epics so that, I mean, we'll say, okay, we want a product that does this, this, and this, right? And then we now open it up so that people that feel they can, suppliers that feel they can meet that requirement, they will come and bid for the job. So it's not just one company. So we're trying to break that monopoly. So doesn't that sound like a strange project? Because at times in that project you could even get frustrated because in a typical project where you're developing stuff, you'll be motivated. The team will be motivated to do more because you go in one sprint. Yeah, after one iteration, you're coming out with maybe one feature or one functionality. You go in next sprint, 2 weeks again, you've developed, maybe you started with one page. The next thing, you've added more pages. The next thing, you've put color. Another one, you put some buttons. Do you get? I think you're seeing progress. That really motivates a team. But imagine if all you're doing is doing research work, checking best practices, use case scenarios, and business cases, to come up with functionality and put it in an epic. You will never see any finished product. So the reason I'm saying that is just to show you that there's so many different ways a BA can be of value in an organization. And this day we are drafting. So for that one, we're drafting. In fact, we drafted the epic to be so generic and not specific, so that there can be flexibility for the suppliers. Okay, so and then I think when we're collaborating with another team and we saw that their acceptance criteria, they were not doing giving when then. Right. But my team, they were so pedantic, as in it has to be given where you can't even say giving the like you say giving, not the, as in they were so particular and picky about the way it will be worded, right? But guess what? The project I worked before then, if you like, you say giving the manager does this and that, nobody really cares as far as they're getting the gist of of it. So don't be too hung up on it has to be done this way, it has to be done this way, except something is fundamentally wrong with that way. Don't go having a headache about it, because at the end of the day, you'd adopt what works for the team. All right. Any more questions?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Okechukwu. Catherine, do you have a question?
No, I don't. I just wanted to know when to stop recording.
I saw that you unmuted, so that's why I was asking.
Okay. No, thank you very much.
Okay, you don't have a question. Okay. So I'm assuming that we have either learned something new or have managed to reinforce your current knowledge or existing knowledge, just so you remember. Yeah.
You've actually done both.
Have I?
You have. Thank you.
Okay, that's great. Good to know that this has been productive or a good use of your evening. All right then, guys. I guess this is where we call it a night, and I wish you all the best.